The first time Ethan saw his father cry, it broke something in him. Victor Hayes had once been a titan, sharp suits, sharper mind, the kind of man who turned abandoned warehouses into glass towers. Now he lay in a hospital-style bed in the living room of his mansion, fingers twisted from arthritis, lungs rattling from the cancer that had spread too far, too fast. Every breath sounded like a debt he couldn't pay. "Dad, the doctor's here," Ethan said softly. "Doctor." Kumar checked the vitals, adjusted the morphine drip, and frowned. "He should not be in this much pain," he murmured. "With this dosage, he should at least be able to sleep." But Victor hadn't slept in days. He winced when anyone touched him. His eyes begged for mercy, but he refused to say, "More meds," because he was terrified of dying in a haze. Ethan had even hired a live-in nurse, but she had quit after just 3 days, leaving only Ethan and his stepmother, Lorraine. Lorraine swept in as the doctor left, a vision of icy elegance in a silk robe, her perfume too bright for a room that smelled like antiseptic and despair. She was 25 years younger than Victor, and everyone had whispered when they'd married. Gold digger, they called her. Ethan had tried to stay out of it, but he'd never fully trusted her. "How is he?" she asked, adjusting her diamond bracelet like the answer was mildly inconvenient news. "In more pain than he should be," Ethan snapped. "Doctor." Kumar said the meds should be helping, but they're not. Lorraine's gaze flitted to the IV stand for half a second, too quick for most people to notice. Ethan saw it. "Well," she sighed, "some people just don't tolerate morphine well." She leaned over Victor and brushed a kiss across his forehead. "Right, darling." Victor's eyes met Ethan's, glassy and desperate. His lips trembled like he wanted to say something, but all that came out was a dry, broken whisper. Then, Ethan moved closer. "I'm here, Dad." Victor's fingers fluttered weakly toward the IV line. Then toward Lorraine. Then back to Ethan. It looked like nothing. It looked like everything. That night, Ethan lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, replaying that tiny, strangled moment. His father's pain, the useless meds, Lorraine's quick glance, and the next morning, a cold, ugly thought bloomed in his chest. What if this pain isn't an accident? 2. The change started with a lie. "I'm heading to a meeting," Ethan told Lorraine as he shrugged on his coat. It was Saturday. He had no meeting. What he had was suspicion gnawing his insides raw. Lorraine waved a manicured hand from the kitchen island, where a glass of green juice sat untouched beside a plate of expensive fruit. "Of course. Don't stay out too long. Your father gets agitated when you're gone too long, you know that." Ethan froze. She sounded caring, devoted. Anyone else would have believed her. But he'd seen the way Victor's eyes followed him when Ethan left the room, panic rising like a tide. His father was afraid of something. Or someone. "Yeah," Ethan said, forcing a smile. "I'll be back soon." He walked out the front door, closed it, and counted slowly to 30. Then he circled around the side of the house, slipped through the service entrance, and padded down the back hallway. Years ago, Victor had installed cameras everywhere for security, but Ethan knew one thing his stepmother didn't. The old storage closet next to his father's room still had a broken camera feed. He slipped inside, quietly cracked the door, and waited. For a while, nothing happened. Just the soft hiss of the oxygen machine, the faint ticking of the grandfather clock downstairs. Victor groaned once, a ragged sound that made Ethan's throat sting. Then heels clicked on marble. "Lorraine, good morning, my love," she cooed as she entered the room. Ethan watched through the tiny slit. She moved gracefully, like this was all a performance. She checked the curtains, smoothed the bedsheets, then walked to the IV stand. His pulse kicked up. She reached into the pocket of her robe and pulled out a small vial and a syringe. Ethan's blood turned to ice. She didn't even hesitate. Uncapping the syringe, she drew something from the vial. Her movements were practiced. Too practiced. "It'll be over soon," she whispered to Victor, voice dripping with pity that didn't reach her eyes. "You're suffering so much, and they don't understand the kindest thing to do." Victor's eyes widened. His fingers twitched, trying to push himself back, but his body betrayed him. "No," Ethan breathed silently, gripping the doorframe so hard his knuckles ached. Lorraine leaned closer, her voice dropping. "You had a good run, old man. And once this is done, Ethan will be too broken to fight. He'll sign whatever I put in front of him. And then finally, this house, this company, this life, will actually belong to someone who knows how to enjoy it." She laughed under her breath. Ethan's vision blurred with rage. She turned back to the IV line. lifting it in one hand and bringing the syringe toward the port. He burst out of the closet so fast the door slammed into the wall. "Drop it," Lorraine spun, eyes blazing. The syringe slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. "What the hell are you doing?" Ethan roared, striding forward, snatching up the syringe before she could. Her face went sheet white for a heartbeat, then rearranged itself into wounded innocence. "Ethan, what is wrong with you?" she gasped. "That's just extra pain medication." "The doctor, don't you dare lie to me," he hissed, holding the vial up to the light. It had no hospital label, no pharmacy sticker, just a clear, sinister liquid in a glass bottle. Victor wheezed, eyes locked on Ethan, silently begging. "Give it to me," Lorraine snapped, reaching out. "You're going to contaminate it." "I'm taking this to a lab," Ethan said, heart thundering. "If this is what I think it is, you're done." Her eyes hardened, icy mask slipping. "You're being dramatic. You always have been. You were going to kill him," Ethan whispered. Saying it aloud made his stomach twist. Lorraine straightened, smoothing her robe like she wasn't standing in front of a man she'd almost murdered. "I was going to end his pain. The way a loving wife does when everyone else is too cowardly to face reality." "You don't get to redefine murder," Ethan said. "Not in my house." "It's not your house," she spat. "Not yet." A silence crackled between them, broken only by Victor's ragged breathing. Ethan stepped closer to the bed, putting himself between his father and Lorraine. "Stay away from him," he said quietly. "From now on, you don't touch his medication. You don't touch his food. You don't touch him. If you do, I swear to God." She cut him off with a cold, mirthless smile. "What, Ethan, you'll throw me out? You think your father didn't sign everything over to make sure I'd be taken care of?" Her voice dripped contempt. "You're already too late." Maybe she was right. Maybe papers had already been signed in secret. But as Ethan looked down at his father's terrified eyes, something inside him steeled. Too late or not, he wasn't backing down. 3. It took exactly 3 days for everything to explode. Ethan moved into the house full-time, firing the last of the staff except a trusted old housekeeper who'd been with the family since before Lorraine. He changed the passwords to the medication safe, called Drive Kumar, and demanded every dosage be reviewed. He installed a new camera system, one Lorraine didn't know about, and moved back into the closet next to his father's room, metaphorically speaking. He was never more than a wall away. The first night, Victor slept. Really slept. No screaming, no clawing at the sheets. Just slow, even breaths. When he woke up, blinking groggily, he whispered, "Less pain." Ethan squeezed his hand, relief almost knocking him to his knees. "I know, Dad, I know." The lab results came in the next afternoon. The liquid in the vial wasn't morphine. It was a cocktail, high doses of sedatives and something darker, a drug that, given discreetly over time, would look like his father's cancer had simply accelerated. Like nature had taken its course. Ethan printed the report and set it on the dining table where Lorraine loved to sit with her laptop and her expensive tea. When she came in, heels tapping, he was already there. "What now?" she sighed, pouring herself a cup. "Another lecture about boundaries." He slid the paper toward her. "Read it." She skimmed it, and for the first time since he'd known her, Ethan saw real fear flicker in her eyes. "You had it tested," she said slowly. "Of course I had it tested." She let the paper drop, regaining some of her composure. "And what's your plan?" "Call the police. Tell them your dying father's wife wanted to ease his suffering." "Do you think a jury won't sympathize with me?" "Look at him, Ethan. He's a ghost." "He's my father," Ethan snapped. "Not your ticket to a richer life." Her smile curled. "You mean your richer life." There it was, the naked truth. Ethan leaned back, suddenly calm. "I sent a copy of that report to my lawyer and to Dr. Kumar," he said, along with the footage from the hidden camera. Lorraine froze. "You're lying. Try me." For a second, he thought she might actually lunge at him. Instead, she laughed, a high, brittle sound that echoed off the crystal and marble. "Fine," she said, setting down her cup. "Then let's all be honest." She walked closer, her gaze locked on his. "Your father married me because he was lonely and terrified of dying alone. He didn't care that you hated me. He didn't care what anyone thought. He wanted someone who made him feel young again." "I know," Ethan said quietly. "But wanting company doesn't mean he wanted to be killed." Her face twisted, the mask cracking. "He wanted out. He begged for it some nights. You weren't here for those." I listened to him whimper in the dark, too weak to lift his head. Don't you dare judge me for wanting to give him what he asked for. Ethan's chest squeezed. He had heard his father beg, in his own way. But never for death, only for the pain to stop. You had other choices, Ethan said. Hospice, palliative specialists, more help, more care, more compassion. You chose the option that conveniently left you filthy rich and free. Silence stretched. Finally, Lorraine's shoulders dropped. For the first time, she looked tired. What happens now? She asked. You leave, Ethan said. You sign whatever my lawyer puts in front of you. You take a settlement that proves we're being generous. In exchange, I don't press charges. The police never see that footage. No court, no headlines. You get to start over somewhere far away, with enough money to enjoy life the way you always wanted. And if I say no? She whispered. Ethan met her gaze, unblinking. Then you go to prison, and the world finds out what you were doing to a dying man while posting inspirational quotes on Instagram. Her lips trembled. He loved me, she said suddenly, as if that one fact could rewrite everything. I believe he did, Ethan said. But love doesn't excuse what you did behind his back. In the end, she signed. Maybe it was self-preservation. Maybe it was fear. Maybe, buried deep somewhere under the greed and the cold calculation, there was a sliver of shame. She packed her designer luggage in silence, pausing only once at the door of Victor's room. Ethan watched from the hallway as she stepped inside. Victor was awake, eyes cloudy but aware. I'm leaving, she said softly. They're making me go. He stared at her. No warmth, no anger, just exhaustion. You, already, left, he rasped. She swallowed, blinked hard, and for a heartbeat, she looked like a woman who'd just realized she'd burned the only bridge that ever mattered. Then she turned and walked out of the house forever. Months later, the pain finally won. But it was honest pain, managed by doctors who actually cared, surrounded by people who weren't counting down the days like numbers on a check. On his last afternoon, Victor beckoned Ethan closer. You saved me, he whispered. I couldn't save your life, Ethan said, his voice breaking. I just tried to save your dignity. Victor's fingers closed around his. You saved me from her, he said. From dying, as a fool. Tears blurred Ethan's vision. You were never a fool, Dad. Victor's gaze softened. I was, where you are, once. Remember this. He drew in a shaky breath. Success is not what you build. It's who you trust while you're building it. Those were the last words he ever spoke. Years later, as one of the youngest millionaires in the city, Ethan kept his father's room exactly as it had been that final day. Sunlight on the curtains, photos on the bedside table, the IV stand long gone. He could still feel the echo of his father's pain there. But he could also feel something else. The quiet, fierce knowledge that real wealth wasn't measured in money or houses or companies. It was measured in this simple, brutal truth. He would never again ignore what someone was doing behind a loved one's back.